You guys realize how many big artists we could potentially have drop this year? We've gotten a J. Cole album. We've gotten an Isaiah Rashad album.
Okay. You see,
We just got. What, Noah? What?
Oh! So can we talk about it then? I'm like,
ooh. Ooh.
Okay. Avery and
Isaiah
Noah
Rashad.
are beefing.
We just
Avery and
got.
Noah are beefing because Avery didn't like that Isaiah Rashad album. I'm just gonna put it out there.
I don't know why this is just coming out. I think I've said this like 2 weeks ago, but
You went on 2 weeks ago.
Ooh.
I mean, just when we talked, like outside of we're friends. I thought.
No, we are friends. No, Isaiah Rashad, you're right. Isaiah Rashad, Tyler the Creator.
Tyler the Creator. We're about to get a Drake album, maybe.
Kanye, maybe. Lord just came out.
Lord just came out. Kendrick potentially.
Doja Cat came with the album. That's a big artist.
Like this is like 2016 material right here.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's giving 2016, 2015, 2016 vibes heavy.
Who came out 2016 that was really
Beyonce, Rihanna, Cole, Kendrick.
Oh yeah, we might get a Beyonce album this year.
True.
So
well, I mean, I think this is I guess this is gonna happen because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone held off on things all last year. So the later half of this year, I sort of knew, I hoped that we were going to get some mainstream big name releases. And I mean, we have. I wonder if anyone's going to wait till 2022 because they see how concentrated things are getting. Well, like, I wonder if that had anything to do with Silk Sonic delaying their album to next year, which is a headline that, hey, just snuck that in there. You see?
Yeah.
Well, part of me feels like it's like some artists who planned on coming out last year coming out this year, and then it's on top of the artists that planned on coming out this year anyway. So I feel like it's kind of a mixture of both. So it's like all the artists that didn't come out in 2020, the big artists that didn't come out in 2020, and then the artists who plan on coming out in 2020 is like, we're just gonna stick to that. But it feels like it's gonna be a crowded like fall and winter in terms of music of this year. You know what I'm saying? In terms of music.
Like, are we gonna get another Weekend album this year now?
No, I think he's pulling a Billy. I think he's laying the foundation for like a 6-month rollout that we don't even realize is like a 6-month, 1-year rollout. Like, I'd be shocked if the Weekend hit us.
Oh yeah, we got Billy this year. Exactly. We didn't even say Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish is huge. You know what I'm saying? We got 30 Taylor Swift albums. You know what I'm saying?
Well, y'all. So I mean, at this point, I'm just gonna continue this intro and partially push into a different conversation. What's the appropriate wait time in between different albums? I mean, we had Lord come back after like 4 years.
4 years.
We had Isaiah Rashad come back after 5 years. We have Kendrick
Griselda coming back after 2 months. So
yeah, but meanwhile, you have other people like Kanye, who's been pretty consistent in album a year for the last couple of years now.
You say album a year?
I mean, if you include
like every 2 years, basically.
King, Ghost Town, Yay, Jesus is King. Like, I feel like it's roughly felt like an album a year.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot. Yeah,
Kanye's releases have been way too consistent for my brain to not think that they have not been consistent. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like he's dropped all these albums.
There's not. I'm
gonna say confident with 2 years. That feels right.
Feels like a good time.
I feel you. I don't know. You kind of just have to measure it per the situation, because like. You know, it's so crazy. Like, Kendrick came out in 2017, and I know it's been 4 years, but like after 2 years, people were like, "Oh my gosh, I need a Kendrick on." I was like, I'm kind of good. Like, after like 2019, like if he came out last year, it'd have been great. But I was like, I'm kind of good, and I'm super excited about Kendrick him coming out and stuff like that. But I haven't necessarily been like, "Oh my gosh," like fiending for it. You know what I'm saying? Because he's already put out so much music. He's given us so much exceptional music. So it's kind of like it kind of depends to me.
I think like Lord and Isaiah are like unique because they like literally dropped off the map after their last albums, and then they both have like reappeared after 4 or 5 years, and they have like they have the luxury of doing that just because of how popular both of them are and how big both of them are. Right?
Yeah,
man. It's tough. I don't know. It's really Griselda drops a lot of albums, but I think we spoke about this Nnamdi kind of on the Elders Endless Scroll podcast. We were talking about Griselda albums a little bit, and there was like, but people buy their albums. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they don't get a lot of their money off streaming. People buy their product and stuff like that. With like these rappers who are dropping, like, how Future used to drop mixtapes like every other week, essentially. Those are streaming numbers. A lot of people go off streaming, so it kind of depends. So I don't know, man. with Griselda, I'm super excited about it because I don't know, man. I don't know. It's really a slippery
know,
slope. It kind of just situational.
And I will also say, even with Griselda, I think we also have to keep in mind that our expectations are different for different artists. Griselda gives us about a 9 to 10 track EP-ish type of thing, which may be easier to produce than what we would expect from like The Weeknd, which is, at least for me, a full album with videos and like a good single and like, so it may be some people's careers are just probably more suited to either quicker rollouts or longer rollouts. And maybe we shouldn't have an expectation at all and just let artists do their thing, write their music, let it come out when it comes.
I agree.
Maybe that's the answer. I feel like that's the theme of letting artists be artists and not putting so much pressure on them. It's kind of the theme for today's episode, which was a tough but necessary one. We've been having some of those lately. I'm happy we get to continue. But with that, welcome to the 97 Demo Podcast, where we give you the latest in music news, and a whole bunch along the way. I'm one of your three hosts, Nnamdi Agwanwu.
Noah.
I'm Avery.
Full names are written on the screen here if you're curious. We had a special guest this episode, Enrique Olmos, because he joined us for a really good discussion. We wanted to talk about in the face of people like Lizzo and Iggy Azalea opening up about some of their mental health struggles in the music industry. We wanted to have an episode strictly about sort of mental health in music. And I think we've sort of seen why this conversation and dialogue is needed. The backstory for me was Lizzo put out Rumors, a song that got mixed reviews. Even us on this podcast, we were a bit more critical, though I will say the way we talk about that song and the way we gave a critique was not nearly, it wasn't what other people were doing. We sort of recognized Lizzo as an incredibly talented artist who just gave us a song that maybe we weren't feeling. But she received a lot of hate and fatphobic hate and just racist hate and just trolling. And she cried on Instagram, on YouTube, just sort of opening up, saying that like it's been really difficult for me as an artist to work this hard and do 12-hour shifts, talk to the media all day and like travel and constantly go just to have people literally like tear me down. Iggy Azalea sort of replied and said labels should do more, they should get involved. You've heard other people speak out about this. I included Jessie from Little Mix, who has talked about how when she was part of that pop group, she got no support for often feeling like the odd one out and struggling with bullying and hate. So I think the question became, well, what is this problem? And two, what should the industry do to fix it? Because when it goes unaddressed, we've seen what can happen, i.e. Mac Miller, i.e. Juice WRLD, i.e. Kurt Cobain, i.e. Amy Winehouse, artists who feel like they have to sort of cope on their own, and often they turn to drugs or addiction, and we've seen how that can end out. So very important conversation we got to have. And yeah, we can't wait for you guys to listen. So check out our interview now with Enrique Olmos. And also I want to very much so mention, we do touch on like suicide and some really difficult topics this episode. So just a little trigger warning for anyone who may who may find it tough to hear those topics. But here's the interview. All right, cool. So we are back, and we now have with us our special guest, Enrique Olmos. Like I sort of mentioned before, Enrique wrote a really interesting piece about depression, anxiety in music, and sort of just the mental health battles that often occur in the music industry. And when I sort of read it, I felt like he'd be the perfect guest this week for this discussion. So Enrique, I kind of wanted to let you introduce yourself before I start, hitting you with some questions. So the floor is yours.
Sorry, one moment. Okay.
No problem.
All right. Yeah. So I'm Enrique. I am a writer, musician, and producer from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I write for a publication called Local Spins that covers Michigan music and then touring acts when they're coming through town. I write for Rapid Growth in Grand Rapids, and then I play with a band called Joshua Powell and the Great Train Robbery. It's like psychedelic indie rock. I have my own project called Neon Birdhouse that's cinematic lo-fi soul, and then my own music under my own name, which is like instrumental piano compositions. So between that and then I have a day job where I do direct care work. I kind of cobble together a living as an artist, and typically tour 100 days, 150 days out of the year around the country, write on the road, interview bands, go to a lot of festivals and concerts. So I really get to see a lot of, aspects of the music scene, and I like it that way. I like that it keeps me interested creatively and invested, because I can, if I'm bored with music, I can switch to writing. If I'm bored with writing, I can switch to photography or videography. I can have different roles and wear different hats within the industry, and really appreciate that. So yeah, that's kind of my background. I grew up in Jackson, Michigan, just south of Lansing.
Yeah, I feel like that's, well, one really cool thing you pointed out is I feel a lot of musicians tend to have a whole bunch of different jobs and wear a lot of different hats. And I don't think that often gets discussed a lot. A lot of times we tend to focus on like your big mainstream, super big people. But a lot of your
Yeah.
musicians who toured, I feel like honestly, probably the bulk, they wear all those different hats. And I think in your piece, it kind of felt like there's something freeing about that. There's a freeing element to being creative and being able to express, but there's also like challenges that come with that and sort of the pressure of that. I was wondering if you could sort of touch on that as we get into the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's exhausting. I have 4 or 5 different jobs. And so, scheduling, traveling, just having everything organized. The thing is, like, I've seen other musicians talk about this before, where it's like you are your own publicist, you're your own social media, promoter, you're your own booker, manager, until you get those roles, until get to a bigger platform where you can hire in those roles, you're doing all of that stuff yourself. I mean, I took photos of myself for my last like solo instrumental release, did all the editing, and then yeah, so you just kind of have to do everything on your own. And and then beyond that, like, I have to work a day job in the background to, so I can pay my bills. And thankfully I have something that's flexible and pretty easy going, but it's yeah, I think it just gets exhausting having to do a lot of those things yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to like hone in on this line that I really liked from your piece that I feel sort of will be like the theme of a lot of the discussion we have today. And you wrote, speaking about just like mental health challenges and like particularly like if you reach a point where you're pushed to the brink of like a suicide attempt, you wrote, it often doesn't matter how strong your support system is or if things are going swimmingly in life, or even if you're naturally an enthusiastic, optimistic person as I am. And I was wondering if you could sort of touch on that, because I feel like a lot of times, at least when you're fans of music and you're only seeing sort of one side of it, it tends to come as a shock when you find out your favorite artist or singer or musician or rapper actually is struggling, because oftentimes you cover it so well. They seem so optimistic. They party, they go out, they have fun, they're releasing hits, and it tends to be a shock. So I was wondering if you could sort of talk about the sort of masquerading that sometimes happens in terms of mental health in this industry.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Elle Lively mentions it a little later in the article, and so does Kate Pillsbury of the Crane Wives, where, from the outside, the lifestyle seems very glamorous. Even if you're not, famous or anything, you still get to travel around the country, play music for a living, party, hang out with people. And so it seems very enticing and appealing, I think, from the outside, because you're everyone's night out as a musician. You're, whether it's a Monday or a Friday night, it's the same. It's a weeknight for you, but it's like the weekend for the people that are there to see you, and they only get to see that tip of the iceberg, that performance where you're having fun, but they don't see the just long hours on the road, late night drives, loadouts at 2 a.m, sleeping in hotel rooms on floors, just kind of the grind of it that can be really tolling and exhausting. And so yeah, so I think and Kate mentions that people can often like build up this fantasy image in their heads of what they think their favorite artists are like, and they concoct a story behind that, and can be, you have to be able to separate yourself from yourself as an artist, because your artist identity is not you, and it's very dangerous to, I think, tie those things together, because you can kind of get lost in that, and you can get lost in a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is just that it looks very glamorous from the outside, but that can be very isolating, and also, I mean, before the pandemic, I was spending so much time on the road, that I did not have a good support system really at my home. I had a lot of friends around the country that I could go see, but then when the pandemic hit, I realized I was like, wow, I need to build out a community kind of around me close to home.
You kind of
Yeah.
mentioned.
Go ahead.
All right, cool. You kind of mentioned how like you're in your music, not just you, but like speaking about musicians in general. And it was in the article, I forgot specifically who said something specifically like this, but it was essentially like, they talk about living this life through their music and what they're going through, what you're like, and and these people have this, the people who listen to your music have an idea of what you're like. Even though it might be just one side, and Nnamdi's kind of touched on it, but like, can you speak to like, the lyrics that, musicians might put in their music, and then the effect that has on the, that effect that it can have on the fans, their impression of you, and then how that in turn can affect your mental well-being?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's very one-sided, because you do get to know an artist through their work, because it's very personable, and so yeah, so you can kind of create this relationship that's one-sided, and it there's not really another way around it. That's just kind of part of the deal. But I think it's because music is so powerful and can resonate with people and get under their skin, communicate things you can't really say in normal conversation. You can talk about anything in music. And because of that, I think people can very, fans and audience members can just very quickly like attach themselves and think they know an artist. And I have a lot of friends. I was talking to my friend Stu Paak, who's a musician out of Ann Arbor, or Ypsilanti, and he writes very like melancholy, sad folk music, and also deals a lot with mental health in his work. And he gets approached by people after the show so often where it kind of turns into like a therapy session. People, and I've had this too, where people might come up after the show and they'll like share some very personal things, and that that's great to an extent, but it's also can be unhealthy when you're just like getting a lot of baggage from other people. So I think just finding a common ground where you, like I mentioned before, you can separate your work and your identity, as an artist. But I think it's just because music is so powerful, people resonate with it. And the best music is something that you listen to and you almost feel like you wrote it. You feel like this feels like it's about me. I've lived this as well. So I mean, I think that's why it's such a powerful medium.
He also wrote in this article that you could like empathize why like many of your heroes and peers have succumbed to like suicide or drastic measures due to their like mental health. Can you kind of expand on that? Like, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I think I can get into my story like firsthand with mental health and stuff, and what that journey's looked like. And I think in part it's because in the article I share that I have had some suicidal ideation, and that didn't happen. I'm 28 and it didn't happen until last year. So I think it just kind of really, I don't know, it just kind of like shook my foundation a bit, because life had been very good up until that point. I really had to deal with too much adversity. And I was always very optimistic and positive and happy. And then those ideas and those feelings and those thoughts kind of just hijacked my mind. And I think that's kind of, where I was leading with that, is that I finally could understand that it's almost like you don't have control of your own mind. And for me, that was very, very legitimately the case. So in November of 2019, I had a psychotic break. I was touring nonstop. I was not sleeping. My marriage was ending. I was using substances every day, and that caught up to me. And I'm just I completely lost my mind. I was hearing things. I was seeing things. I had delusions. I thought I was famous. Thought people could read my mind. All of these things are very like classic delusional thoughts. But when you're in them, you don't know the difference. Your reality is what you're seeing through your own eyes. And for me, it was, the first time that happened, I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was totally fine. And that's the scary thing about it, is that you can't, it's not like a broken bone or a headache. You can't diagnose it yourself because you're so embedded in it that that's your reality. And you will, you act accordingly. And so I did some very, I had some very odd behaviors during that time. I mean, a lot of things, spending a lot of money on random things. And then I ended up going to the hospital. I went to Pine Rest, a mental health hospital here in Grand Rapids. I was there for 2 weeks. And that was, again, just a very difficult experience, just not knowing what's going on in my own head, not being able to trust my own thoughts, not being able to trust what I'm seeing, because you can run away from anything, or you can attempt to, if it's another person, if it's a wild animal, you can run away from those fears or those threats, but you can't run away from your own mind. So it's really the scariest place to be in, where your own mind is kind of against yourself. And then the pandemic hit in 2020, and I got severely depressed. I was on a heavy antipsychotic, gained about 20 pounds, just had zero interest in doing anything, didn't recognize myself. I would have like photos or memories pop up on Facebook, and I would see myself, from even just the previous year, and just long for that person because it wasn't there. And then things slowly got better. I got on an antidepressant, and by the end of summer 2020, I was doing much better. But then, it kind of goes in these ups and downs. You have depressive states and then manic states, and started to get manic again. And to describe that, I mean, it's like the best drug you could ever take, but it's in your own brain. It's it's a good feeling, but the crash is really hard, and it's very exhausting. But that kind of again, it's unfortunate that that good feeling in itself is suspicious. Because it's, as after being depressed for so many months, I was like, I feel great. I want to do things again. I want to make art. But then there's always this underlying potential for it to turn into something more, and it did. I had another psychotic break in January of this year, and then that started off a string of episodes, where I was in the hospital for I think 2 weeks in January of this year, got out, and then ended up going right back in the hospital I think 2 weeks later for another 2 weeks. Got out again, and had another psychotic break, and got sent to a hospital over on the east side of the state, which was like very isolating, far away from home. Even in Grand Rapids, family couldn't come see me because of the pandemic. So I'm just there by myself. I can call them, but that's my only line of communication. You have no phones. I mean, it's very, it's a locked down facility. So it felt very, suffocating. And you just take your own, free will and autonomy for granted sometimes. And it just, just being cooped up inside, not being able to leave, was really difficult. But yeah, so that's kind of been the journey I've been on. I was diagnosed with bipolar, um, and also ADHD. And after I got out of the hospital that third time, that was in March, I believe, and I got diagnosed with ADHD. I had really bad anxiety that came out of nowhere, just being uncomfortable in my own skin every minute of every day, and was cycling through all kinds of medications, and nothing seemed to work. And then they put me on a stimulant for ADHD, and that solved it. The anxiety went away, and my brain had the right amount of stimulation to function and to focus. And so yeah, so it's been a long year and a half for sure. But it's really good now. It's and all I can do is kind of take it day by day. I don't know if I could have another episode. I really don't know. But I'm doing the work I need to do to stay healthy, and have gotten away from having to, I can drive myself crazy with trying to like check reality, did you see that light flicker, or was that me, um with the worry. But that ultimately just piles on the anxiety. And so I'm just trying to trying to live freely and stay healthy, and just do that work every day to kind of continue that.
I just want to say first, thank you for sort of sharing your story. I think
Yeah.
that insight and perspective is absolutely appreciated. And I sort of want to like circle back with that in mind now that you have went through those experiences and persevered, and you're sitting with us now. I think it's really fascinating that you titled this headline "The Battle for Mental Health." Now that you're sort of emerged on that other side, what do you think? What does the battle for mental health look like, especially in music?
I think it just means talking about it, being open about it, because if I hadn't written the article, I wouldn't be here having this conversation. I'm still getting some emails trickling in, and messages about it. And again, because I just for so long presented this facade of like everything was okay, and I think it can really help other people when they can relate and resonate with someone else's story. Just even if it's just letting them know they're not alone. It's just like, hey, like I've been here as well. I know what it's like. If it can just help people feel less alone. But I think just being open about it, destigmatizing it, discussing it. And I mentioned this in the article, but we're as artists, we're so good at distilling these stories into song and art. But I think it just needs to be more of a conversation. Additionally, there needs to be more conversation outside of our art about it. So that other people can see that.
And I want to ask you, as we see this conversation sort of start to happen on the national scale with Lizzo was sort of who I feel pushed me towards seeing this conversation this week, going on Instagram and like crying about sort of the response to her music and the scrutiny and the bullying and all the sort of toxic and worst parts of, I think, being a musician on that scale, having to release your music and get opinions from everyone, good and bad.
Yeah.
I'm sort of wondering, did you sympathize with her at all in watching that? Was that a feeling that you sort of understood with what you had gone through, just seeing this person who comes off as confident and optimistic and bold be literally reduced to tears because of sort of the pressure of the industry and working hard and having people not like your work?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously not on that scale, but it's with my writing or my music, like it is, I am not good with criticism. And so I'm a perfectionist, and I slave over every detail of my work. And to have that not be receivable is hard, for me to kind of take that. But I'm learning to get better at it. I'm learning to care a little less. And you can't make art for other people. Anytime I've tried to write a song with the idea that like, oh, what will other people want to hear? What will other people like? I've never gotten anything good out of that, because in the end, I don't like it. And that's really, I think an artist has to have tunnel vision to an extent, where you're just so focused on your work. And I think all that we can ask of artists is that they make what they want to see be made, that they write the songs that they want to hear, make the films that they want to see. Because while that might not, you might not have as broad of a reach for an audience. Everyone's not going to love your work, but the people that do are going to be in. They're going to have the same feelings that you have about it, because they resonate with it. So yeah, I think to an extent I'm kind of grappling with that now, just trying to get better at shucking those criticisms, and just making art that I want to make.
I kind of want to ask about coping mechanisms in terms of, it's kind of it's in the article also about how, overall, musicians might not have the best coping mechanisms, if it's drugs or alcohol, any other substances. But,
Yeah.
I've heard of musicians and other artists, using their music as something to cope with, or, just talking to people. I guess, can you speak to kind of your thing that's kind of freeing in terms of you coping? Is it, you writing music? Is it you just writing to yourself? Is it whatever? A lot of people have different ways to cope with different things. And how do you do it? Being a musician, like, is there a specific way that works for you and the way you do music? Or is it something that's, just kind of speak on that?
Yeah. I mean, I love to write, but I equally as much love to perform. And so like, to kind of contrast with what I just said earlier, you have to make art for you. Even with that said, I still hope people like it. I want it to land with people. And so for me, it's being able to present, like a finished product, or present a song or what I'm working on. Through the pandemic, one way that was really just helpful for me, probably even more so than anyone that really engaged or listened, was posting little snippets on Instagram of me playing the piano. And that was just a way for me to share what I'm working on, share what I love, and just have it be seen and appreciated by people. And so I really enjoyed that. And then journalistically writing, that very much exists in a vacuum when you're working on something. I'm not posting an Instagram about an article I'm working on typically. And so that's more of a slow burn. You kind of get delayed gratification. You have to wait for that article to be published and for people to see it and engage with it. So it's just big buildup of intense writing and deadlines, and then eventually I get it all done, and send it over to the editor, and then get to see people engage with it that way. But yeah, I mean, beyond that, I think, beyond coping mechanisms that that aren't my own work, like I mentioned, the ADHD medication has been incredibly helpful. I love exercise. I love to lift weights. That's very much just a very peaceful time for me to just kind of work, and just kind of have solitude. I love going on bike rides. I love cooking. And yeah, what else? I mean, getting coffee with friends, having conversations, are some of my favorite things, and just touching base with people and letting them know where you're at and how you're doing.
Clearly this is a part of being an artist that is not talked about a whole lot, and something that people entering this profession or the industry don't think of as just part of the job. So what advice would you impart onto younger musicians or younger artists who maybe aren't prepared to go through these struggles? Maybe not the same ones that you specifically went through, but just having mental health struggles as a whole.
Yeah, I think just having a support system, having a community. I mean, I'm in therapy every other week, and I just have a strong support system. A family that is supportive of what I'm doing, friends who are supportive of what I'm doing, are in the industry. But just being able to stay grounded in that, and again, not have your entire identity fixed to your artistry, because we saw, last year how unstructurally sound that is. It can go away at any moment. And so I need to be whole as a person, outside of my art. So I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. And then, take your time. Like I have a lot of aspirations and goals, and I wanted them all to happen, right now. And it's taken like 10 years to see, any traction or any fruit from that labor. So I think just take your time, and then also just, try to hold your art, your grip on your art a little looser, because you're your own biggest critic. And I have a lot of music that I wrote and never put out because I didn't think it was good enough to be released. And again, I'm just starting to shed that away, and just realize that life is too short to not share, my work because I don't think it's good enough, because someone else might find something in it that they can glean off of it or relate to.
Enrique, and as we wind down with our final questions here, I'm sort of curious, are you, I know you said you're a musician, part of several bands. Are you independent though, in all those sort of groups you're in, or even as your own, are you guys independent acts?
The psychedelic rock band, Joshua Paul and the Great Train Robbery, actually just got signed to a record label this year. It's a small label based in Indianapolis, where the band's located. But to my knowledge, I think most of that is on kind of the production side of things, with like facilitating vinyls, and that sort of thing. But it still just helps. It bolsters our profile. It just helps, our resume as a band to say that we're signed to a label.
Absolutely.
And then my two acts are just me.
Well, one, congratulations on just getting signed. But
well, thank you.
No problem. But part of the reason I asked is just when I was reading this article on one of the studies you pull from, which is the Princeton Survey of Musicians, some of those numbers, as far as how widespread this is, sort of really caught my attention. Like more than half of musicians saying that they often feel down or depressed. 11, nearly 12% saying they have had thoughts that they'd be better off dead. And then, to Noah's point, a lot of that is manifest in self-coping. You have 5 times more likely to use cocaine, 6 times more likely to use ecstasy, 13 times more likely to use LSD. So I think my question has sort of become, in the face of this becoming a national story this week, you had an artist like Iggy Azalea saying that there should be more of a responsibility on record labels to do more. And she had a tweet thread, Avery, if you want to pull it up, where she was saying, there's only like 4 huge, gigantic, once you get to like, a certain level, all of it gets consolidated to like 4 people that could really make this choice, and like put a psychiatrist on team, or even if someone's going on tour, have that be a resources, whether it's like people who are throwing a festival, should there be a psychiatrist there in the back for anyone who's having anxiety? Like, is there more that you think that the actual industry should be doing sort of in this moment?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think record labels, they're kind of a dying breed right now. So I think there's only so much that they can do. But certainly, like across the board, in the industry, there can be more support, for not only artists, but also people, people who are traveling with artists, people who are loading in their gear, checking their instruments. One of my biggest gripes, I think, with how, one of the things that could be changed, tomorrow, is that, a lot of times when you show up to a venue, part of your pay is drink tickets. A lot of times, they'll hand out, 3, 4, 5 tickets per band member. And then we buy our own food. And, for me, that just seems silly, because I have a lot of artist friends who are sober, and they have to play these venues. And not that they, can't be around alcohol, but they're around the constant consumption and recreation of it, and literally given it to them for free. They can be something so small as having the option to forego drink tickets to have meal tickets. Alcohol and food are, I don't imagine food at some of these venues can be more expensive than the alcohol they're pouring. And so, I think just something like that, would be incredibly helpful to have that option. And then, just having, if a venue has the availability and the space to have a specific room for artists, a green room, that's their home on the road, and so it's nice when you can go to a place and you have your own space to kind of hang out in. But I think beyond that, just maybe being less demanding of artists, because like I mentioned before, there's a lot of artists who are doing everything on their own, doing all the booking, the management, the driving. So yeah, I think just support kind of, across the board. There's a lot of things that, can be improved.
From what it
And
sounds. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
Nnamdi.
no, I just had one last question, then I'll
Go
let
ahead.
you take over. Last thing I wanted to ask you is just the responsibility on fans. When I think about the way we talk about Eminem, that's who jumped in my head. He's someone who's been open about having like an addiction problem and then getting sober. And the response from a lot of fans were, oh, his music isn't as good as it was when he was doing all those drugs. I hear that all the time. People will say, oh, his worst album is when he got sober. So I'm wondering, does any of this fall on the fans and sort of how we look at artists and sort of, I think, commodify musicians and sort of honestly dehumanize them in a way? And what should change sort of on that front?
Yeah, the rock and roll like musician's lifestyle is very romanticized, and I think throughout history artists have grappled with mental health, and I think it is very romanticized, whether it's substance use, whether it's the 27 Club. We have this almost fictitious standard for artists, where it feels like they have to be tortured souls in order to make anything good. And I think that's just unequivocally untrue. I think you should be able to make art clear-headed, and that should be the foundation for it. And and I think audiences could do better with that, and just just recognizing and following along with an artist's story. And ultimately, if they're a fan of whichever artist, they should want them to be doing well. They should want them to be sticking around for the long haul and making art for as long as they can. So yeah, I think less romanticizing of that, that idea that an artist has to be tortured, that an artist has to be drunk or high or whatever to have this like catalyst to make their art. I think that perspective could be shifted for sure.
Kind of going off that question with the fans, how does that look different? Because obviously, an independent act could, they don't have, millions and millions of fans coming to their shows or buying their music, but there's still pressure from fans. But how does that look different from like a big artist like Nnamdi mentioned, Eminem, who has millions and millions of fans that he could see through social media or just whatever? And how does that differ from, an independent act of like the pressure they have from, local fans? Or is that more, pressure they're putting on themselves? Like, man, I'm hearing that, my music was better when I was in this state, or when I was in this time of my life or something like that. Or I was going through something tough, or this was in a good place in my life. How does that pressure look different for a smaller artist or an independent artist?
Yeah, I think it's I think maybe it's not as overwhelming, to have so many people that you can't possibly keep up with. So I think there's room for like a stronger community and support system. It's probably a little less isolating, being a smaller act. I can't imagine, being a household name. That's got to be. I mean, we were talking about reality earlier, and I can't imagine what that reality is like to live that every day. So I think there's less pressure. You have more room to fail when you're kind of under the radar, more room to experiment. And then, yeah, just hopefully, you have a tight community around you to support you, especially in Michigan. I mean, we have such a flourishing music scene that's very connected, and everyone knows everybody, and everyone is kind of supporting each other in what they're doing. So I think that is really cool that we have people that we can kind of like come up with and be in the same the same sphere with. But I think there's still a certain extent of pressure even for local acts as well to just live up to those standards.
Is that more pressure? You kind of mentioned how like you're a perfectionist, other people you might know. Is that more of pressure you're putting on yourself, or is that more or artists putting themselves because you're a smaller act because those fans aren't, in your ear all the time?
Yeah, I think that's certainly part of it, because when you're uh constantly like trying to make it to the next milestone. So I think there's a lot of pressure, on yourself to succeed. And there's a lot of, even though we have, a very close music community, there's always, the comparison game where you see someone else is playing a big show or a festival, and you can compare yourself to them, and uh, jealousy can sit in, and that's super unhealthy. And so yeah, I think the pressure, maybe the juxtaposition comes where like it's maybe less pressure from fans and more just on yourself as a band or as an artist to make it, to make a living, to make your art, to have it reach people, and just yeah, just very much a blue collar grind, at this level.
Absolutely. And I think just to wrap things up, in your article, you said the way to fix this is by talking about it more. We're having a conversation about it. Is there any final message you just, now that we're having the conversation, a final message to get out about the topic of sort of the battle for mental health in music?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned earlier, just destigmatizing it, being open about it. I talked with a lot of mentors and friends who read this article before it was released, and there was one point where I felt really good about it, and then I I went back. It was like the week before I like reread it, and I was like, I don't know if I want to share all of this, and just bounced it off some friends, and I had some very like reaffirming conversations where one of my friends told me like, uh, this is this is you being bigger than the things that you've dealt with. This is you kind of taking ownership of it. And yeah, I think taking ownership of our mental health, and just being okay to set boundaries, for yourself, and self-care is a huge buzzword right now. And I think just being able to uh, you have to put your needs before others and your needs before your work, so that you can be there for your work and be there for others, and stay healthy. So I think just taking the time to take care of yourself. That's the foundation for making art, or putting out your work. Is you have to be grounded and healthy in order to have that be sustainable.
Absolutely. Enrique, I really appreciate you making the time out of your schedule to talk to us. I honestly don't think we could have found a better person on this topic with all your insight and perspective. And, we really appreciate you just being willing to share all that with us. So thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. So again, thank you, Enrique Olmos, for joining us again. That was really great conversation. I really liked where we ended that, specifically about what fans should be doing differently. it felt relevant with what the intro of our episode was, and sort of the pressure we even put on artists about when they should release music. Fans are a part of this problem too. So I think there's definitely work to be done on all ends, and we're really grateful to Enrique for helping point that out for us
and sharing his story too.
Yeah, absolutely, an amazing story, and his willingness to share that. We'll definitely, like I mentioned, find some of his songs on our playlist this week. We'll link to his story on all of our socials, so definitely check out his stuff as well, because he was great for sharing his story with us. So now we're doing the episode kind of backwards. We're going to go to headlines and then new releases. You already know. We have to start with this because it's just, we've sort of been on this story for a minute. But Anderson Paak, why did I say his name like that?
Whoa. Anderson Paak.
I can't talk anymore today. I've been going too much. Anderson Paak. So like Tupac, Anderson Paak.
I know.
He got a tattoo. I didn't think this was real, but it is. He has weighed in onto the posthumous albums debate by getting a tattoo, very clearly saying, "When I'm gone, please don't release any posthumous albums or songs with my name attached. Those were just demos and never intended to be heard by the public." A tattoo. That's because, isn't it sad? But here's what punches me in the face about this story. Isn't it sad that he felt the need to literally get this tattooed because artists are I'm sure artists have this stuff in their wills, but that's probably not enough anymore. You know, like if you don't own your music, that's probably not your choice. Isn't it crazy that they have to go to this lengths to ensure that doesn't happen?
Is this supposed to be like legally binding or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not legally binding. I think it's just so the public will always know that he didn't want music to come out after.
Gotcha.
That's fair, because that's the thing. Because I think that's something like with Pop Smoke died when he was so young, and we don't know his thoughts on like posthumous albums and whatnot. While Nnamdi's laughing.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at this conversation at all. I just read this comment. I am so sorry.
Yeah, these comments are
and I'm sorry, that was horrible.
This is not a laughing matter at all.
It's not. Can you read the comments so people know why I wasn't laughing at the story?
No, it's fine.
It just said he could have just made a tweet. That was kind of funny, but sorry, go on.
That was my first thought after I saw this.
He could have just made a tweet or something, but okay. But I was thinking like these younger artists like Pop Smoke and Aaliyah, when she was passed away, they're so young, they might not think about what their music is how their music is gonna be handled afterwards. I assume like older artists like Stevie Wonder or something like that, they're so old, I feel like that's something they probably planned and talked about and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure Stevie Wonder actually owns most of his masters actually, but I think that's something that's we don't really know with younger artists, especially when they pass away, because it's something they probably didn't even foresee happening. So I don't know. Do you guys feel like he should have, do you think he needed to get this tattoo? Do you think it was
to me
doing the most?
It feels like a lot, but if this is the way he wants to convey that message, then who am I to judge? You know what I mean?
I think my thoughts on it is I get why, I get the tweet, someone saying, oh, a tweet would have been enough. But I also sort of think that's not true. And I understand this for the public statement it is. I'm sure you can track down a tweet from a Mac Miller, Juice WRLD, XXX Tentacion, and people have, where they have sort of said things to the sphere of oh, my music is me. Who are we talking about whose mom said, oh, they were so against putting out music after they passed? I feel like it was
could have been Pop Smoke or XXX.
Maybe
Pop Smoke's mom was an EP, right? So
Pop Smoke's mom was an EP, but there was another, I want to say it was Lil Peep.
Oh, Lil Peep.
Who was his mom was oh, he didn't want to work with certain artists or do these songs, and the label didn't care. So I say that to say, I don't think a tweet would have been enough. I don't think saying it in an interview would have been enough, because I think Prince did that, and he just had an album that came out the other week. So I sort of understand this for the statement it is, of saying, you now have this on my body. There was no excuse for a label to say they don't know. I think a label now would have a harder time getting fans to appreciate an album full of unreleased music, knowing that this guy had a tattoo saying, don't do that.
For sure. I agree. Because, with other artists, you can't really tell. You can't, did the artist want this? Did they not? With this, it's in your face. So I like that point, Nnamdi. I don't know, man.
Lana Del Rey apparently co-signed that, by the way. So,
Oh, good for
shout
her.
out, maybe not shout out Lana, but, there you go.
Good for her.
All Are we getting another Kanye and Drake beef?
I think it's the same beef. It's just
Okay, well, this
continuing.
is speculation. First of all, with
Okay,
the Kanye
no,
side
the
of
amount
this
of
is
evidence we
speculation.
now have, this is a beef. This is more than speculation.
No. Like this part of the saga where Kanye West posted a screenshot of a text message is speculation because no one knows who was in that group chat.
True.
But do we know that Kanye posted that screen cap?
Yes, he did.
He
And
did,
do we know that it said adding Pusha T?
right?
Okay. So let's
But
lay
the
out
only
what
the only indication that Drake was in that group chat was there's a little D in one of the bubbles.
I don't think Drake's in that group chat. I'm pretty sure. I don't know why people thought that. That would.
That's what I was saying. Like that's pure
Oh yeah,
speculation.
I agree with you. But let's walk people through how this feud sort of happened. So, because honestly, this one kind of snuck up on me. Drake put out a song with Trippie Redd, which I have not listened to because honestly, I'm not the biggest Trippie Redd guy. It's okay. We all have our.
Not only did they, so Trippie Redd's album came out on Friday, which I guess we'll touch on in new releases. And
Yeah.
then on Saturday morning, another version of the album appeared called the Complete Edition, which had this song with Drake on it called Betrayal, which was not previously on the album that came out on Friday.
So that sounds like maybe this verse just came in and he was, I'm gonna get it on my album.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's Drake saying, all these fools I'm beefing that I barely know, 45, 44, let it go. Ye ain't changing shit for me. It's set in stone.
So there's layers to this. One, all these fools I'm beefing that I barely know. He knows who Kanye is, so Drake may could have been trying to flex. But then 45, 44, he says burned out in the background, let it go. A lot of people think he's talking about Kanye's age. Kanye West is 44 years old. So you're 44, you're burned out, let it go. Ye ain't changing ish for me, it's set in stone. That's obviously a response to people saying, I wonder if Drake is holding off Certified Lover Boy for Kanye's album. He's waiting for Kanye to drop first because he doesn't want the attention. He doesn't want to drop the same week. A lot of people were saying that, even though that's really kind of dumb, because if we're being honest, if they both dropped the same week, Drake probably would get the commercial upper hand. I'm just gonna say that. But yeah, Drake did this. So Drake, if in my opinion, this is kind of it may not be a shot, but this is a shot. And specifically the 45, 44, let it go. Like,
It's so crazy. This doesn't feel like a new beef because going back to the Pusha T Drake
It's been
thing.
going back for years.
didn't they end that though? I feel like
No,
that
but
ended.
but going back to Pusha T Drake thing, if you listen to Drake's whole like diss track, what was it called again? The one after
The Duppy freestyle.
Duppy freestyle. That whole thing was mostly about like Kanye. It was mostly like, even though he had sides of Pusha T, a lot of those lines were about Kanye essentially, and it seemed like his beef was mostly with Kanye, and Pusha kind of just stepped in, and then he kind of became the face of that. But I don't know, it just feels like they're just not on like great terms, honestly.
Yo, but
And
did they not?
but I
did they
think-
not bury the beef. Like,
Clearly.
did they not end this feud?
I don't
thought
know,
they
but
did.
I don't know if it's a feud, but I think they're both kind of just tired of their names being connected. They're like,
I
oh
don't
my
think there's
gosh.
resolution. Like there's no
Yeah, I don't-
resolution.
I don't think there's a
know why
resolution,
thought
but I
there
think they're
was
just like,
a-
I don't know. I don't think there was a resolution. I don't think
And
there was
Drake
a
has
resolution.
mentioned Kanye on like songs after that. As
Yeah,
recently-
he had him on
No, but
Scorpion.
that's what it was. It was a respect line though. After that, Drake talked about Kanye on a song, but it was like a
on
compliment.
the
I'm pretty
wants
sure.
and needs this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I need to
But-
go
so
live with
that's-
Yeezy.
I
I
thought-
need me some Jesus.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So I thought that was a sign of like, oh, we're good now, because he kind of I need me some Jesus, I need me some, that feels pretty substantial. But I guess not. But I want to talk about Kanye's response, which was, I think they have the screenshot if you scroll down. He posted a text of people in a group chat. We don't know who the people are, but there is a couple letters. You know how Apple does it. One of them is D. Some people have thought that was Drake. I
People
don't
reaching.
think it is.
People reaching.
But basically,
That's a
the
reach.
bulk of this screenshot is Kanye. It says, you added Pusha to this conversation the way Apple Music does the way Apple does whenever you add someone to a group chat. It's a picture of the Joker, as portrayed by
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, my boy Joaquin. And he says, I live for this. I've been messed with. I've been effed with by nerd ass jock people. Ninjas like you my whole life. You will never recover. I promise you. You will never recover. I promise you. Tough words.
Like, what is this?
This don't even sound like Kanye. I'm sorry. This don't even sound like Kanye at all.
He's deleted this, by the way, from his Instagram.
The "you will never recover" is what is the heaviest thing, because I don't know what power Kanye has, but
Oh, the other part of this is there's a little screenshot above this where you get like a little glimpse at another text message from another conversation where it says, "Where's my green watch?" I guess Virgil Abloh made Drake like a green. I don't know if it was a Rolex, but it was like some green emerald watch.
Really?
And this looks like it's a message from Kanye to Virgil. This is very speculative, but it looks like it's a message from.
There's a V there too, guys. There's a V
about
Oh
where's my
God.
green watch. You know what I mean?
Yo, what's our dream? Okay, that's insane, but I'm doing this.
Who gonna steal Kanye's phone? Because you know his password 0000. Remember he was at the Trump at that White House. It was just 0000. So you can steal Kanye's phone and get it everything. You know what I'm saying?
Y'all,
So-
can we play a game really quick? Just super quick.
No,
No, for real, just let me do it really quick. If we had to guess, what's our dream scenario for who these letters stand for in this group chat? So if we're-
Drake,
someone-
Virgil.
Drake.
Someone
Hold
said
on, say the letter and then the name.
Okay.
Someone
So
said
the
the
D,
T is
Drake.
the weekend, which I'm like, why would he have the
Wait,
weekend? The weekend in his phone?
The Weekend.
Wait. The B is Virgil. Who could the B be? The B could be like
Beyonce?
Beyonce.
Nah, Beyonce is not in the group chat. with
Beyonce
Kanye.
would block all of them.
No,
immediately.
first of all, Kanye knows not to call Beyonce. Beyonce will not answer.
Just
The
there
M might
today.
be like Mike Dean, right?
Mike
Well, I don't
Dean,
know.
yeah,
Is that a
Mike
J
Dean.
right there? Is that a J above the M? Maybe. Who knows? Maybe it is.
It is a
Yeah,
J.
it is
Someone
a
said
J.
J Electronica.
Jay
No,
Electron,
probably.
Jay-Z's on the album, but I feel like Jay-Z wouldn't do the group
I
chat.
bet Jay-Z would not be want to be involved.
Okay,
in
let's
it.
not hold on. Let's not because this is at this point I know I'm wrong. Let him not go. Let's
Jay-Z
not
don't carry his own
ruin
phone.
credibility.
Yeah,
He
you're right.
doesn't.
Jay-Z don't carry his
Never
own phone.
forget that part of the Beyonce released something in one documentary where she was like, "I'm gonna call Jay," and then it's like Beyonce's assistant calling Jay's assistant and giving him the phone, and I was like, "Wow, what a
Yeah.
world to live in." Wow. Okay, so a lot of time on that headline. What else do we have here? What was last? Oh,
This is more fun.
Okay.
This is better. This is better.
This
Is
is
this fun? I hope it's fun.
it's more exciting, honestly. It's more like
I think probably like it's the biggest headline this week,
I agree.
perhaps. Kendrick Lamar has let us know
Well,
that.
let's give some context, okay? First of all,
Okay, yes, take us
on
take us
his
back.
on his socials, he just all of a sudden drops a link. If you want to go to just the white thing, the new thoughts, it's just a little folder thing that you would see on like an old Dell computer, and you're like, "Whoa, what the heck?" He's like, people thinking, "Oh my gosh, album, song, da da da." You know, whenever
It's called
because
New
Kendrick doesn't
Thoughts.
post at all, so people thinking.
Yeah.
So you click on it, okay, and he has this like little letter
Yeah, we're
he
not
wrote to
reading
the
all this.
fans.
We're not reading all this.
And he has a lot of things about like what he's been doing and stuff like that. But the thing that caught everybody's eye, of course, is this last couple graphs where it says, "As I produce my final TDE album, I feel joy to have been part of such a cultural imprint after 17 years. The struggles, the success, and most importantly, the brotherhood. May the Most High continue to use Top Dog as a vessel for candid creators, and as I continue to pursue my life's calling." So, and he said at the end, "See you soon enough." So a lot of people, were saying like, what's so crazy? I feel like people are kind of stupid because people are like, "Oh my gosh, Kendrick's last album." I was like, he said last TDE
Last
album.
TDE album.
He didn't say his last album. He didn't say he's retiring. So this gives the inclination that like TDE that Kendrick's leaving TDE after this next album.
Which
is
I could
excellent.
understand why some people may interpret that as his final album. Not obviously, if you semantically know, he's saying it's my last album at TDE. But I
Yeah.
think when we think about like the whole, we used to have, which label or which imprint's
Yeah.
doing the thing, you just associate Kendrick with TDE and that
Yeah.
loyalty and like the family like vibe that they sort of showcase. I could see why it's hard to imagine Kendrick literally with any other label but his own, which is what I think he's
That's what
doing.
he's probably gonna do.
Because
Yeah.
I think, some people have thought maybe, I think PG Lang is going to be the new label. Because if you look at Baby Keem's like singles from this year, it has like Sony, but then it'll have like a little PG Lang licensing thing. So I was like, does his
think-
Baby Keem under his label? I don't know.
Whatever this PG Lang thing ends up being, I think it's gonna be a family affair, like within Kendrick's, like literally immediate family. Because
Well,
Baby
and
Keem's his
that-
cousin, and I think his uncle or
I don't
something
think
is
Baby
involved.
Keem's leaving TDE though.
Well, Baby Keem's not in TD.
Oh, never mind.
Okay.
Wait, where's Baby, what imprint is Baby Keem on?
He was independent. He was independent
He's
before
PG
that.
Lang
but
now.
He's PG Lang now all
Wait,
day.
Baby Keem wasn't on. Why would they not?
He wasn't
If
on.
that-
He just
is-
wasn't on TD. He just wasn't. He was on Black Panther album. I think he was on other songs, but yeah. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see where Kendrick goes. after
I have
TDE.
I have
I think he
another
deserves.
question.
I think he deserves that as on label. He has the.
I
He
agree.
has the ability. He's a big enough artist, and I think it's only good could come out from artists, having their own imprint and
I
helping
have
other
a-
artists.
I feel like this was brought up by like Anthony Fantano
Oh,
in
I
a video
know.
he watched, but this is like not great for TDE. It feels like
It's
Yeah.
not. It's
Like,
not.
this is their next biggest artist, and she's had issues very publicly with TDE.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Where
who
is TDE headed?
Yeah, like what's
Well,
going
like
on?
I'm not. I honestly, my perspective has changed a lot now that I've realized that Baby Keem was not in fact signed to TDE. I don't know why I've been under that wrong impression. Well, I do know why, because he's often collabed with them and he's Kendrick's cousin. So I just put two and two together. But no, he's not. Because now it's like I don't know what the I think Kendrick has been the face of this label for so long.
Of course, yeah, of course.
And like, even though you do have Schoolboy and J Rock and SZA and so many other Isaiah Rashad, so many other like talented acts, like
Kendrick's
this is
the
gonna
guy.
losing
He's
their
blue.
biggest,
This
the
is,
biggest.
like really
voice.
the only other like star.
Yeah, it says it's
And
like
I
the only
remember
really
Kendrick's
cool-
last two tours have been TDE tours, so it's
Mhm.
like it seemed like he was really big on like,
TDE.
we're in this together, TDE, like we're a family. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was a shock.
And it's so crazy you would never, because like I would say like 2016, 2017, you were like, well, TD is like the strongest label in terms of like success, the quality of the work. You can't really say like there's a bad, I know people don't feel every TD project, but you can't say like, man, everything's like pretty quality for the most part. People
Mhm.
like are saying, pretty positive, they know that positive reviews for every project. So I don't know, man. I just want the album now, Kendrick. So
It's also Top Dog came out and said like, we tend to think of these things as like there's something bad involved or like negative. Like we tend to think of these like departures as like negative things, but like this album's gonna be a celebration, and we wish all the best for Kendrick. Like there's clearly no
Yeah.
like nothing. Like it's like it feels like Kendrick's contract or something is running out, and he's just not gonna come back.
yeah.
And it's like
And it says that he says there's beauty in completion and always
Yeah.
faith in the unknown.
Yeah. I feel like somebody with Kendrick, because Kendrick's the face. I feel like he was like, I just feel like going somewhere else creatively, and I just feel like moving on. I feel like he's that type of guy. I don't feel like he would leave on like bad terms necessarily. I don't
I
know
don't
the
think
guy
there's
clearly.
anything bad here. It's
You
Can
know,
I ask you guys two questions? I'm sort of curious that I feel people aren't talking about a lot. One is the timing. Does anyone else his decision to sort of release this before any album, before any single, just a random post with the main message being "I'm leaving"? Did that catch anyone's attention as to like
I feel like
why? he
Kendrick's
decided to
like-
sell
Kendrick is like an Avengers movie at this point. Like we don't need a trailer. I don't need a single.
Yeah.
Just the idea that it's coming out is enough for me to get hyped for it.
Yeah, I think enough people are like, literally, he dropped this photo. He didn't say an album or anything. People are like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Like, literally, you see the comments like, oh my gosh, don't play with me. Like,
I
he
just
really
wonder,
can just drop an album.
I think I'm just wondering, like, was the point of this to establish like the beginning of an album rollout, or was the point of this just to say this is my final TDE album
Both,
months
both,
before any album
both.
is out?
All of it. I think it was all of it. It was all of the above.
Can we
All
also
the
talk
above.
about the flex of saying that he goes months without a phone? That's awesome. It's
I
impressive.
mean, I'm sure you have to talk about our mental health. I mean, I'm sure you have
Mhm.
to.
You're right. You're right.
And then second thing, him signing this Oklahoma. Anyone have any guesses what that is?
What
I
is
thought
it? I
maybe
don't know.
Lamar.
Remember the beginning of Duckworth? He says like Oak Lamar, something like that. Hail Mary, something, something, something. That sounded like what he says at the beginning of Duckworth before he starts rapping.
I don't think it says Oklahoma though. I don't know.
It sounds like this. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know what
I
this
can't
is
wait to
otherwise.
figure out what that.
Maybe
what
a
that
new
ended up
moniker.
being.
I don't know. Maybe a new character. Remember he was, Kung Fu
Kung Fu
Kenny.
Kenny.
You know what I'm saying? So
Okay, Lamar, but not with an R.
I don't know. Okay, Lamar. Okay.
Go and listen to the
Kendrick-
beginning of Duckworth.
So I don't know. We'll see. So
Okay, well, we'll remain excited about that too. Okay, well, new releases. Let's talk about songs we've listened to. We got Aaliyah finally on streaming. One in a Million. Her sophomore album is now the first of her catalog, I think, to be put on streaming platforms, which is a big deal. We have a new album from Lord, Solar Power, which I know Avery was really big on. So, friends, what'd you listen to? What'd you like?
I mean,
Go
I've
ahead,
been
Avery.
listening to this Lord album. I really like it. It's really good.
Just
I'm
low-key.
actually shocked by Avery's like response. He's like, I like it. I was like, oh.
Did you
I
expect
have
me
actually
to?
been shocked by it. You have had a muted response compared to what I thought. You know, when
It's been
Isaiah was
muted,
dropping out
exactly.
House is Burning, Noah
Okay.
was texting me at midnight. You ain't do
Exactly.
that
I
for
was
Lord.
hyped.
That's what I expected.
I mean, I really liked it. I don't think I like immediately. I don't think I like it as much as like Melodrama. But also
Yeah.
like I really like this album, and I really like what she did.
I don't know. It just feels crazy because, like, you know, I can speak to my fandom, Isaiah Rashad. I love this album, but I don't love it more than his other project. But I'm still hyped. It's just Avery. You just seem a little.
Ooh.
I mean, I'm not that's not like my personality, anyways, right?
Yeah, no, but
well,
for
you were
Lord,
pretty
for
excited
Lord,
about
you were
the
pretty
Adobe
hyped for Lord,
Japanese
though. You was
breakfast.
pretty
I
hyped.
was, and I'm still
DVD.
excited, and I really like it. Like, I think it's probably gonna grow on me too.
Fair. It just came out, so you gotta give it a chance.
Yeah.
So fair.
Check in next week on the
Yeah,
97 Demo
next
podcast.
week. There you go. Exactly. Next week. This Aaliyah album. Obviously, this isn't like a new album, clearly, but
Might as well be.
Exactly.
Honestly,
People
for a whole generation,
for a whole generation of people, it is. And I heard a couple people saying this is, you know, this album was the best release of the week. You know, it said the best release this year. You know, this is the best thing this year, even though it's an album from, you know, the 90s, essentially. How do you guys feel about that? Her music coming on streaming, it's kind of like it's happening. This is happening. Her music's gonna be, you know, more music's gonna be coming. So
To the dismay of like her estate, by the way.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this has felt very weird, and we had that whole debate within our group chat about Anthony Fantano's question of like, should the fact that her estate seems to be against this. I've been hesitant to say family because her uncle is her family, so this really is like an intra-family conflict. But should sort of the controversy among the estate change your willingness to listen to this music? And my answer was like reluctantly acknowledging that I'm very ignorant and don't know a lot. That you know, basically, like, I think it's probably a money issue, and I'm tired of a money issue standing in the way of Aaliyah's music finally coming out. As selfish as that may sound.
Yeah.
So
it's just a slippery slope because I always feel that like I get families, you know, estates want the right to see like we're gonna put it out when we feel like it's ready to come out. But you know, also I always, you know, and I don't know, I don't have any family that's famous. I'm part of any estate, but I just feel like having the music out of somebody who's passed is just the best way for their legacy to continue to move on. You don't have to have a posthumous album. We're not asking, you know, this is not like a posthumous album. We're asking her estate to come out with. We're just asking for music that's already been released 20 plus years ago.
What benefit are you doing her legacy by not allowing new people to listen to it?
Yeah, but
know?
we can say that because we're ignorant of the
Yeah,
situation.
no,
too.
from
We
my
don't really know.
perspective of like
Exactly.
only knowing this side of it
So,
and being like, I would like to hear more of Aaliyah's music accessibly.
yeah.
That's my perspective right now.
But the album's great. It's a
I
long album,
do wonder
guys.
why they decided to start with this album, because they skipped her debut.
Well, it's
which
on
was-
streaming for me though. Her debut's on streaming for me.
Oh, has that one? I know one of her albums has always been on streaming. I didn't know if it was this one. So it's
I don't know
Age
if
Ain't
it's,
Nothing But a Number, always been on streaming. Is that on streaming for you?
Yeah, that's on streaming for me. So I'm assuming that I'm pretty sure that's her debut. So it was on streaming. I don't know.
No,
if
it
that just
is.
became
It
on-
is.
Okay, yeah. So
You know, the R. Kelly stuff has made that a whole different album, but that's for a
Exactly,
whole nother
exactly.
episode to get
So-
into.
So
So
yeah. So but the
that
album,
was almost a headline this week, and I was like, you know, let's not touch that quite yet.
So that-
Yeah.
great album still. One in a million is a great album. It's an hour and 18 minutes, which is long. Which I was like, whoa. Still
Yeah.
a good album. Still good
Well,
album.
what else did you guys listen to this week?
You wanna be
Well, I'll go.
honest?
I listened to this new Ed Sheeran song, "Visiting Hours," which I thought his
It was-
bag tends to be the more intimate, sentimental bag for Ed Sheeran.
It was an Ed Sheeran song.
It was. And you know, on like 2017 or 2018, Ed Sheeran made my top
Wow.
5 listen because he had a song called Supermarket Flowers on his last album that was super like emotional about someone passing away that I loved. And this was like a sequel. This is just his bag. Like to Avery's point, it's an Ed Sheeran song. This is like where I think
Also, he announced a new album too, I think. Equals.
Mhm.
Equals,
He did,
yeah.
He did. He's
So-
with all the math, you know, the math stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
I love
Yeah.
sticking to a theme though. Even though I'm pretty sure there's not really a meaning anymore. He knew it. He just had to call it equal because once you do
You
multiply,
can't really do like
He closes his eyes and presses something on the keyboard.
exactly. He's like shift.
I really
Return.
liked
Ooh.
Life. I really liked "Life Is Not the Same" by James Blake. It felt like a James
Oh,
Blake
that was good
song,
too.
but I like James Blake, so I'm perfectly
Yeah.
content with
He's
that.
just so good.
That was good too. I agree. That was a good song.
His
I
Kevin
actually-
Abstract song was good. Sierra.
Oh
Night.
yeah, I was gonna
Really
say
good.
that the Kevin Abstract song is pretty great.
Yeah.
And it seems like, Kevin Abstract's getting ready to release his album, but it looks like Brockhampton's back working too,
Also.
which is interesting.
Yeah, they
So,
posted a picture of all them in the studio. So.
we like talk about Griselda, but we forget when Brockhampton released 3 albums in like 6 months. So Brockhampton,
Hey, they set the bar high for themselves with the last one. So
yeah, the album's that's the one of my favorite albums this year. So yeah, man. So a lot of music. Ooh, this Earth, Wind, and Fire with Lucky Day.
it is good.
It is good. It was kind of shocking. I was like, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Wow.
You're like,
Lucky
wait.
Day. I was like, wait. I was like, did I read that correctly? It was
And
actually
Lucky
a
Day's
solid
so
song.
talented.
Yeah, Lucky Day sounds how the Earth, Wind, and Fire is like a iconic, obviously.
Yeah.
So interesting pairing
Listen
there.
to
And
this Big Boy song.
Ooh, I missed that. Did you listen? Was it good?
I haven't listened to it. I just wondered if you guys.
I haven't listened.
I
should
think
take a listen to that.
he has an album coming out.
Big Boy is very underrated, obviously, because he's in a group with Under 3000, so understandably so. But Big Boy is very talented in his own right. And this Jaden song, Jaden Smith, but he's just Jaden. I think that was smart, him just being.
Oh,
Jaden. I like that better.
Yeah,
It
that
was cool. I wasn't super high on it,
It was
but
cool.
It's
It was cool.
It was chill.
One, I joked that I feel like it's what people wanted Lord's album to sound like, but
Oh.
that was a joke though, because it's really not. But it's really.
If y'all
Jaden's
see
been
Avery
in, like,
face,
this
Avery like,
bag.
ooh, I told
Jaden's
myself
been
back.
in like this bag since last year, and he's
Yeah, you're
staying
right.
in it. I don't really know, like kind of like
he
a
did like a pop
Oh.
thing on his last one, and this is more rap.
Yeah.
It's
really
interesting.
this felt, but it's rap with like a pop beat.
Yeah.
It's like the production
interesting.
is still very like. It's an
It is
interesting
interesting.
dissonance. Listen to it for yourself. Let us know what you think. I'm gonna shout out Tiwa Savage and Brandy, Somebody's Son, a nice Afrobeat song. But a lot of people don't know Tiwa Savage, who is very, very big in Nigeria, probably one of the biggest female stars right now.
And Brandy's still doing the damn thing.
Yeah, I'm glad they were able to do this. Tiwa Savage, she went to school in America and is actually like a classically trained singer. So I think it's cool whenever she does a crossover thing.
I got a couple albums to shout out. Well, just actually one, but this Dame Dollar album. Dame Dollar is.
Are we taking him seriously?
He's
wanna
serious.
know.
He's been serious. Dame Dollar is NBA player Damian Lillard. NBA superstar, I would say. One of the best players in the NBA. He's doing this rapping thing. He performed at the All-Star game with Lil Wayne. Remember?
Was it good?
Ago? This album is very solid. He's a good rapper. He's a good rapper. So it's not necessarily something I'll go back to, but Dame Dollar is a solid rapper, and he's done it seriously. He has other albums on stream. This is his like debut album, so he takes it seriously.
The name of the album is acronym.
Oh yeah.
Different on levels the Lord allowed,
Oh.
which is Dala.
Dollar.
That's cool.
Dollar. That's nice. I didn't even notice that. Dame Dollar. Different on levels the Lord allowed. Wow. He is different. That boy different. So
Check it out.
So yeah.
I'll check it out.
So yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah, you should check it out. I checked it out. You should check
Justin
it out.
Bieber put out this song "Don't Go," which is like he's kind of rapping on it, and I'm not.
Justin Bieber
I
don't
have to
rap.
think
Just
of the
embrace
right
it.
episode. I have to think of the right episode to be able to really air my grievances. 'Cause I don't want to come off as
I know.
as a hater, but y'all know how I feel
He
about
has strong feelings towards Justin Bieber. Let's just put it like
him
that.
trying. He did Afrobeat last week. He's rapping this week. I have to find the right episode to
Yo.
talk about it. But
Well, I
just
play that song for
know-
my mom, and she's like, "Who's this?" I was like, "That's Justin Bieber." She's like, "Oh, really?"
I mean, I appreciate him on Essence because he is gonna take it.
The
to, like, just
original
like
is
he did
better,
for Despacito. He's gonna like raise
Yeah.
it to a new sort of platform, and
That song's already
appreciate
good
it.
anyway. Yeah. that
But
song's
I
good.
just, I'm gonna find the right. Maybe I'll write about it. Who knows? Maybe let's see.
Maybe we'll
I
write.
don't know.
Ooh,
But-
interesting.
You're right about it. Interesting proclamation.
Okay, this
Yeah.
has been a super long episode. No, yeah. Wait, do you have any other albums you want to shout out? or
No.
you good?
Let's go.
Okay, just to wrap things up quickly on the Hot 100 Billboard highlights, Stay by Justin Bieber is still at number 1. Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber, speaking of. I
Good
listened to the song for the first time this week. It is not, I get it. It's a catchy song, very pop radio. I get it. Take My Breath by The Weeknd debuted at number 6, and Bad Habits, Bad Sheeran hit a new peak of number 3. Those are my 3 highlights this week in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. Anything surprising? Good for You is a consistent hit. We love to see it.
Nah.
Love it.
And number 2.
I expect Take My Breath Away to continue to like just go up. I just expect it to go up because it's just The Weeknd. He's just been super consistent the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So
Lil Nas X having 2 songs in the top 10.
and,
Yes,
oh yeah.
yeah.
And his album's on the way, which I'm excited to hear.
I'm
So-
excited. Yeah, he had a tweet about that. After 3 years, he's been out his album, and let me tell you, I think that's how you do it. You give an artist the freedom to find their sound, And then when they feel ready, they'll give you a good album.
And he had an EP. He had a little EP a couple years ago, so it's not like he doesn't have. So he has a collection of songs still, but
that's my weekly reminder that Industry Baby is fire. So
good.
So good.
I agree.
Levitating by Dua Lipa has been in the Hot 100 for 45 weeks. And it's still number 5. Sorry, I just realized that. That's kind of wild.
Levitating.
And it's the DaBaby version.
Featuring DaBaby,
getting a check. Never forget.
Never
way
forget.
they decide if the feature's on it is which gets more, like the percentage of total sales. And this means that the baby feature is still making up a bigger chunk than the solo. So, you know,
Yes,
all that
sir.
hold accountable stock. And then over on the Billboard 200, we have Happier Than Ever, still number 1 for the second week. King's Disease by Nas debuted at number 3. Love to see it.
That's awesome.
Love to see it.
Really good.
Yeah.
Nas.
You know,
Solid album.
Who's
Solid
who's listening to George Harrison?
Not me.
Not me,
Re-entering
but
at
you
number
know,
7.
good for him.
Good for George Harrison. So
Good ex Beatle getting in here in the top 10. Interesting.
By the time this episode drops, when it's not a prediction, they were pretty sure we already know, but Doja Cat's expected to have her first week at number 1 this upcoming week, which would be really nice.
Planet Her.
Congrats to her. Planet Her expected to jump to number 1.
It's so
which
dope
she deserves.
It's so dope when an artist like gets number 1 like way later. Not like they stay number 1, but like they drop down, they come back. That's so dope. Doja Cat's just great, man. She's great.
And then
I
the
think
week
she's had, like,
after,
a bunch
apparently
of
Olivia
songs.
Rodrigo
Yeah,
is
she
supposed
does.
to be back. You know, so you know,
She's had a
we'll see
bunch
the
of songs
album
on that
shuffle.
album like get big, like a bunch.
On Planet Her, right?
Yeah.
You know, part of me, which is I'm very grateful we didn't review that album because I wasn't the hugest fan upon first listen, but it just a lot of people love it, which I power to them. You know,
Yeah.
I'm happy being wrong.
Looking at this like top 7, 8 of the Billboard 200. Remember last year, we were like, oh guys, it's so rap heavy. Look how pop heavy. It's Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo. Kid Laroi was kind of more poppy, honestly. Doja Cat, you know. So
Is Doja Cat pop or female rap? Hey, conversation.
both, but she's really poppy. But I'm saying you can put her in.
I get you.
You know what I'm saying? So interesting. So yeah.
Project of the week. I chose Bo Jackson. We had an interesting conversation off the record about what I was going to choose, and I listened to this earlier this week, and it's a very, very strong album. I don't think Alchemist has really missed in a while. I'm just realizing if I spelled his name right. I think that's a I don't know why I put a Y.
You did spell it wrong.
I'm sad about that. But you know,
The Alchemist.
that's what I'm putting on the playlist. Be on the lookout.
Okay. Mine is
Noah watches the YouTube, right? It's fine.
Yeah, no one watches YouTube anyway. Excuse the noise in the background. Geez, Chicago. Navy's Reprise, Navy Blue. This is coming off of Navy Blue's 2 projects from 2020, which I really enjoyed. And this is his 3rd album that's on streaming. He has like mixtapes from way back in the day, but Navy Blue is one of the up and coming artists in the underground rap scene. It's so interesting because he's like an underground rapper, but he's like a big time model. Like he models for Supreme, Calvin Klein, and all that stuff. But in rap, he's underground. So
Very ASAP Rocky-ish.
barely, but A$AP Rocky is like a big artist, so you know. But Navy Blue, it seems like everybody doesn't listen to his music, so it's interesting. So, but this is a great album. Navy Blue's been super consistent the last couple of years, and he's becoming one of my favorite rappers. So yeah, Navy's Reprise by Navy Blue. Check it out.
Mine is Take the Sadness Out of Saturday Night by The Bleachers. This came out a few weeks ago, and I wanted to put it as my project of the week last week, and I had another album that I wanted to put there, so I feel like I'm making up for that here. But this is The Bleachers' 3rd album, Jack Antonoff's side project to producing now, I guess. But yeah, this is their 3rd album. It's their 3rd really strong album. I really love it, so look out for that.
A very dynamic playlist this week, and remember we're gonna have some of Enrique Olmos' tracks on here, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Thank you all for listening to this longer episode of the podcast, but we hope you enjoyed it. We got to hit on a whole bunch of topics, some tougher than others, so we definitely appreciate you guys sticking around. Follow us on all of our socials at the 97 Demo. Follow all of our individual accounts. Follow Enrique Olmos, and we'll see you next week.